Welcome YouTube, this is your boy Anthony. In this tutorial I'm going to teach you guys on how you can create a basic activity using Android. The tool that we're going to use, our editor, is going to be Android Studio, and the programming language is going to be Kotlin. Please stay tuned, don't forget to subscribe and share this tutorial. So we'll start off by creating a new project by saying start a new Android Studio project. And then we have multiple templates that you can choose from, different activities or templates. The one that we're going to use today is what we call a basic activity. And then you say next, and then we give the application a name. If you're not okay with the location where it's going to be stored, you can change the location. I bet I'll change the name because I already have another app by that name. After making those changes, you will now go ahead and say finish, making sure that the program language is Kotlin. So this is how this basic activity looks like. The latest one looks like this. So we're going to run down this folder structure to understand what is going on. So it's made up of a Java folder and a Rails folder. The manifest folder won't be discussed in this tutorial today. So in our Java folder, we have 3 packages. This is the main package that holds everything that we need. These other packages come by default and they're used for testing. So because in this tutorial I'm not going to have any tests, I'm going to delete them. I'm going to delete these packages. Cool. After deleting them, let's run down. Let's get inside this package. We'll start with the main activity because all the action starts from this file. So we're going to have a discussion on this later, but you should be aware that in our main package, basic activity package, we have 2 more other Kotlin files. Basically they are fragments. So we have a fragment called first fragment, another one is second fragment. So in this basic activity, whenever you launch the app, this first fragment is going to be the one that is going to be rendered to you via the main activity. It's going to use this section called the inflator to inflate the first activity using to be this fragment. We'll see that in a bit. We also have another activity. You'll also see that in a bit. Now let's jump to our Rails folder, our resource folder. Our resource folder, compared to an empty activity, has couple of extra folders. It has main menu activity and menu folder and navigation folder. I'm going to discuss about this in a bit. So in our layout folder, we have couple of XML files. Compared to an empty activity, this one has extra activities. It has content, it has fragment, it has another fragment. Okay, so by definition, the activity main is usually the first one that pretty much connects everything to our app. So let's open up activity main.xml. Cool. So this is how our activity _main.xml looks like. very nice. You can see the UI looks very nice, but to see the the code that creates this kind of an activity, we should go to our activity, sorry, in our text slash design view to see what's going on. So apparently this activity is made up of a layout called coordinator layout. So don't confuse that with a constraint layout. So the coordinator layout has a context, and the context is the Python code, KT file. I'm used to Python, sorry about that, guys. So the context is the main activity, meaning that it is the main activity that is powering up this front end. Yeah. So this coordinator layout starts from up above and it ends at the bottom, meaning that it's the one wrapping other functionality inside it. So one of the things that are inside this coordinator layout is what we call com.google.ando.material.appbar layout. So this one here, if I click it or highlight it, you notice that on this other side, that is the one being highlighted here. Okay, so this part is what you see here. Okay, and it starts here and it ends at the bottom. So pretty much if you want to put any stylings on this, you define them over here. Okay, so let's say I go to material palette, material palette, so I'm going to choose my theme colors for my app. Let me say red and blue, and this is how it will look like. If I want to start with blue and red, this is how it will look like. So it just depends with what order you want. Okay, yeah, so let me make you this one. So I want to have this one as the bar color, and this is other section's color, right? So this top section is what you see here. The one that follows it is what you see up down here, and then this whitish background is what you see here, and then this grayish of the text is what you see here, as well as this line over here. So I'm going to change these colors. So I'm going to say this dark primary color is what is going to be put on the top section of our app bar. So I'll go to values and then colors, and then change color primary dark to what we have in our material palette site, like that. So I want to change the primary color to what we also have in our material palette. So you have this section, which is this one over here. So this section is what you see here. So I'll copy that by just clicking. And then my accent, color accent, I want to change it to this color. So I'll copy that. Like that. So we'll go back to our content main, sorry, in our activity main, and we can also edit our background color for this app bar. So to change that, you can say background, say art, yeah. So after changing the colors in our colors XML file, that takes effects. Even in our styles, that also takes effect. So it affects almost every part. So going back to our agenda, so the main activity underscore main has this app bar. Together it also has what we call a floating action bar. A floating action bar is what you see here. So I've skipped this section, I'll explain it later, but basically a floating action bar is what you see down here. and then this is what you see up above, and then what do we have in the middle? What we have in the middle is what we call content main. So over here we are basically saying in this layout we want to include another layout by the name content main. So this layout is found in a folder called layout, and the name of that layout is content main. So we can go to layout, and then you see we have content main. So this is what is going to be included in activity_main.xml. So to open it up, to open the text view part, so this is how the content main looks like. This is how the content main looks like. So over here you can add a button if you want to, or anything you want. But basically this is a new feature now. This is what we call a fragment. Okay, a fragment is just a module that has an XML file on the front end, and it has a class on the back end. Okay, but pretty much up to this point this is not the actual fragment, but rather this is just a placeholder. This is a placeholder for other fragments. When we started this tutorial, I told you that our app has extra Kotlin files. So we have first fragment and second fragment. So right now if you run this app at the moment, you'll notice that if you click after running the app on your Android phone and then launching the app, you'll notice that when you click next, it will take you to another fragment. So this one is called first fragment. So if you click next, it will take you to another fragment called second fragment, right? So hello fragment here is what you see now in the fragment_first. So you see we have hello fragment. So if you click next, it will take you to this another fragment called second fragment. So we can just label it. At the moment it has not been labeled, but we'll label it. We can label it, right? So let me say text. So it does not have a text. So let us add a text. To label this text that you see here, right now it is blank. Just add a property. Yeah, so that's how it works. So you see the text has been put there, but this is not the right way of adding the text. So I'm going to do the right way using the standards that we have. So you just say, apparently the text was already set. You just need to say second fragment label, and it is there. So this will be the first fragment to be displayed on the view, and when you say next, it will come to this one, right? This one over here. So if you click previous, it will go back to first again. If you click next, it will go to next again. So how does this play out? Yeah, all of these fragments are being overlaid over the content_main. So this is just a placeholder. So when you click first fragment, it's going to be placed here. When you click second fragment, it's going to be placed here. So whatever I'm highlighting is just a placeholder, but by default first fragment is the first to be displayed. So how does Android know how to switch or how to navigate from one fragment to another? And that takes us to another folder by the name navigation. So if you open up navigation _graph.xml, this is the one that defines how things should go. So when you see we have next fragment is being taken to second fragment. When you say previous, it takes you back. You can add another fragment here and also define how they should connect to one another. Okay, so this is the relationship that you see here. So when you say next, it takes you to a second fragment. Okay, So when you say next, it takes you here. When you say previous, it returns you back. And it also has a code for it. Okay, so you see we have first fragment there, and then we have second fragment, and this is how they are related. Yeah, so you see it has an ID first fragment, and then it has a name that is being referenced in the package, and then the label that you actually see. So first label, which is what you see here, which was what you saw here, and then we have the layout that is being referenced. In our layout, the fragment is what? First fragment. And then we have an action. So action defines what should happen. Yeah. So when you define what should happen, you should give this action an ID. Yeah. So we have action first fragment to second fragment, and then you give the destination where we should go to. So we should go to second fragment. So you see, ID is action first fragment to second fragment. So this ID is very important because it's going to be used in our first fragment to define the movement. So the ID that I've just highlighted, and then if you go to first fragment, you see it is here, action first fragment to second fragment. So it's very important to understand that these IDs are being used in our KT files. Okay, cool. So I'm going to minimize all this. So I'm going to add a feature in our first fragment, or even the second fragment. We're going to add a button on in our second fragment that will enable us to create an intent, and this intent will take us to another activity. But you can also add that in another way. So what's that second way I'm talking about? So in our content main, we can add a button down here. So because this is a constraint layout, I'm just going to drop in a button and constrain it appropriately. So the reason why you cannot constrain this button on this next button is because this button exists in a fragment. Okay, so you can add a button there and give it a name. So let's call it BTN. Let's say third activity if we had one. That's the ID. Say yes, and then the text. So let me call that third activity. Third activity. So that's one way of adding a button onto our context, but my initial plan was to add a button on our fragment because the way you're going to implement intents is going to be a little bit different. So let's add a button in our first fragment. So the purpose of this button will enable us to move from this fragment to a new wholesome activity. Good, good. So we need just take note of the ID. So I'm going to copy that ID and pretty much close this section. So what we need to do is go ahead and create another activity that we should move into from the first fragment. So to create a new activity, you open your package where you want that activity to live, and then you right click, say new, then you say activity. It's going to be an empty activity, and its name is going to be second activity. Second activity. Then say finish, and there is the activity being built. Let's create the other activity, third activity. Cool, very good. So right now we have two more extra activities. We have second activity and third activity. The second activity is going to be launched from the fragment. The third activity is going to be launched from the context, the content underscore main. So let's start with the second activity. So in the second activity, let's go to its res folder and just label it. So second activity second. I'm going to use a linear layout. Then drop in a text. So let me give my linear layout area orientation. So we are going to define this name in our strings files. Third activity, I'll just copy this. So let's go ahead and rename these labels. I'll copy this. Control D. Yeah, good guys. Up to that point we are okay. So let's now go and write the code for moving us from these different fragments to, from the content main and from a fragment. So let's start with content main, and content main is found, its code is going to be written in our main activity. So first of all, we need to grab the ID of that button in our content main. So let me go ahead and give it an ID. So btn So let's see, we have second activity. So this one is in a fragment, these two are inside a fragment, but this one is in our own fragment. So sorry. So I've given it the wrong, actually I've done a very wrong thing. I've renamed the fragment itself rather than renaming this button. So I need to get the ID of this fragment, and the ID was, let me remember, I think it was nav underscore host. Fragments. Yeah, that is the ID. Yeah, I can remember that is the ID. Yeah, I think that one is fixed. So we need to use this ID to now grab it on the back end and even activate a set on click listener. So because this one is being served with which context, because content main comes from activity main, which is being served with the main activity. So I'll go to main activity here. So on create, you'll go ahead and say that button ID. So the reason why it's like this, you need to import it. So alt enter, then dot set on click listener, and then we need to create an intent. So say so the intent will be moving from this activity, which is main, so you can just say this, and then going to where? Going to second, was it second activity? From main, we are moving to the third activity. So say third activity class.java, like that. So we need to import this one, and then after that you can go ahead and say start activity intent. Okay. If you don't really want to write a lot of code, this can be written as like that, and it will still work perfectly well. Okay, cool. So that's what we need just to do to achieve moving from the content underscore main.xml to the third activity. So you need to go ahead and run your app to see if it is going to be able to fix not probably, but to run the actual running of the app and see if it is really working as expected. So next, let's make an intent now in a fragment. So in a fragment, we have what we call a function or a method by the name onViewCreated. And like in main activity, we have onCreate. Okay, onCreate. And that's where we implemented the set onClick listener to the button. So in a fragment, we are going to have what? onCreated, and this is where we need to put our button. So we're going to set an onClick listener on our button inside this context. Okay, this one. So what is the name or the ID of the button in our fragment first? So we had a button by the name second activity. So I'll just copy the ID, go to our fragment, paste it, import it by Alt Enter, and then say .set onClick listener. So this means when the user clicks the button, what should happen? When the user clicks the button, we are going to create an intent. Okay, to create an intent that will move us from this fragment to that new activity, which is going to be the third activity. So for simplicity's sake, we're just going to use the start activity. So we need to say start activity, and then we say intent. This, because this is a fragment, we need to say this at, what is the name of our fragment? First fragment. In fact, I'll just copy this name, like that, and then say to where? To second, to third activity. And then we import the intent, but you see we still have an error. The error is none of the following function can be called with the argument supplied. So we need what we call a context defined in Android context, right? So it needs a context. So we need to say the fragment dot context. So what is the context of this fragment? What is the context of this fragment? It is the main activity. So you cannot say main activity because this fragment is floating over the main activity, but we're using it through or via a first fragment. So first fragment overlays the main activity, and the main activity is our context. So we're going to say use the first fragment context, which is basically the main activity. I think that is clear, guys. So in our third that's how it looks like. So in our first fragment, we added this feature over here. Okay, so that's it, guys, for today. This tutorial has been long enough. So if you have any issues, please let me know. Send me an email or anything like that. But that is all. Looking forward to release another YouTube video for Android series. Thank you guys for watching. Have a wonderful day ahead.